Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Energize Your Online Business podcast. Hello, ladies.
Hello,
Hello.
hello.
Hello. As always, I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, Kate Siddars. Hello, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello. And today, Kate and I are very excited to be joined by Sheri Moise, who is an intuitive business astrologer and sales and marketing mentor. And she creates AstroStrategic plans for her clients that leverages the cycles to get their right timing for their business, which is so much fun and so fascinating. So, Sheri, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you both today.
So I was just saying to Kate beforehand that we're looking forward to this. This should be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And before we dig into it, I do want to give a caveat for anybody who is, if you're woo, you're going to be into this episode, absolutely. But if you're not, if you're like astrology, I will caution you to still listen in, because Sheri has a lot of insight into just the ways that we talk to our audiences and the ways that we approach them, and certainly the way that she works is very astrology based. But there's a lot of the learnings, even if you're not into astrology, a lot of the things that she's going to talk about are still going to be very, very useful to you. So if you're an astrology doubter, stick around anyway, because Sheri has a lot of wisdom to offer. So
An open mind is never a bad thing, right?
open mind is never a bad thing. Yes. So with that, hey, Sheri.
Hello.
Hello.
I love that. I appreciate that you said that and so if you're still here for a second, like astrology is data. So I'm going to drop that and then I'm going to explain why. And we all use data in our business for so many things. So why not get another avenue of data that's going to help you connect with more soul clients? That's how I look at it.
And I can't wait to dig into that. I'm curious though, how did you get into this?
I've always been astro curious. And I was I had a good friend who's an astrologer and one of my early mentors. And as I was tuning into what I was going to do next after 25 years in corporate, I was like, it is time to shift to something that I happen to be very good at sales and marketing. I had a great career and it was soul sucking. So I was looking at, where I was headed. And so I was using the astrology to just know where I was in my own seasons of life, what I was flowing through. And then over time, as I got into the online world, I found another mentor who was really using it day to day in business. And I was just fascinated. And I have a lot of Virgo energy in my chart, which makes me can be in that perfectionist, got to get it right mode. And what the astrology did for me was give me permission to be like, oh, well, this is what is happening. So let's lean in and not try to course correct, right? And I started using it with clients because I would get curious. I just want to look at your chart. So I've always been able to read intuitively. That's why I say intuitive. And my mentor now, I've been certified now. There's only a handful of people that do business astrology certifications. And she has so many great tools. And so I've pulled the things that really work for me. My clients typically don't want to dig into figure it out themselves. So I'm here to simplify it and gather the things that they need.
Yeah, because it is complicated. It's not as simple as like, oh, I'm just going to go check my horoscope every day and then just do what my horoscope says. The actual trip for anybody who is, I also am astrologically curious, or astrology curious is probably, and have I'm gonna get my chart and see what, and it just comes back and I don't understand any of it because I'm not a pro. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
it
there's
is.
no
It's
question in that.
no, it's just multi-layered, right? It's just this
Yeah.
multi-layered piece. But that's one of my gifts. And that was why I really leaning into this has felt so good. And it's where I've fully pivoted my business, is because I can take a lot of data and just pare it down to what's the thing that Nikki needs to know, or what's the thing that's going to support Kate in moving the meter, and just honing in on those pieces for my clients has been really powerful.
And what kinds of, obviously you can't give us specific advice and you don't have to share advice you've given to your clients, but what kinds of advice do you end up giving, or guidance do you end up giving?
So it typically lands in 2 or 3 lanes. So there's we'll say three ways that we can really leverage the guidance that astrology has to offer. So if we look at it from a marketing perspective, the astrology can guide us with marketing trends and tells us there's these 18-month cycles. So I really help my clients tune in so their offers don't fall on deaf ears. Timing. So when is the best time if you traditionally launch or you want to kick off a course or a program? When's the best timing for you personally or collectively? There's better times for certain types of offers. And then also from just a big picture planning, we tend to, as entrepreneurs, try to take on so much, right? We're like, oh, I can do it all. And then burnout bus arrives and we're hopping right along on it, right? We've probably all three of us have been there, done that. And so one of the biggest things is giving people permission to like follow the cycles and the seasons like our ancestors did and not assume we need to work 40 plus hours a week to get shit done. One of my clients, she's like, you have this amazing gift. You took all my spinning plates and put them in the right and gave her so much more permission to just, okay, that's the best time to work on it. That's when I'm going to do it. And then lastly, from a content perspective, like I was working on some content support this morning for a client of mine who's in the middle of a launch and giving her where the collective energy is. What are people focused on so that she could just fine tune her emails and her content to really help it land. Lots of really fun ways to use it.
Yeah, well, and really just in a collective way. I mean, we're recording this in September of 2024, and whether you follow astrology or not, we all just know that the general population probably of the world right now is just tense and unsure and very stressed out, and it makes a lot of sense to create messaging that meets people where they are, right? But then also, as people calm down a little bit, which Sheri, I hope that's coming soon, to change that messaging as well. Is that kind of what I'm hearing from you?
Absolutely. So that's those 18-month marketing trends we can look at. I call that kind of like, y'all can't see me, but the pinnacle. Like we focus in on this piece first and then we follow the sun. Like the easiest thing to do is follow the sun, but those major trends. So what you're talking about, the energetics right now, there's a thing called there's a north and south node there. We just had an eclipse this past week, and that's how we know when we're going to have eclipses is these points in space. But they also, each one hits the north or south node every 18 years. And so it's a really amazing predictor of what's going to happen marketing wise. And the north node went into Aries, which is, like get it done kind of energy, but it's also really hard on the nervous system. We're kind of in that high alert energy. And so marketing needed to change when that happened because we were coming off Taurus energy, which I call fancy lazy, where it was like, just do it for me, right? Like if you can fix my problem, I'm happy to pay you for it. Whereas Aries energy is like, I need my result and I need it now. I just need you to fix my burning problem. What's the burning problem? Like the house is on fire, get me my hose, right? And so that's a very different marketing. And you can watch in the cycles and seasons when it'll take people 6-9 months to figure it out because they're like, enough stuff's not working. My pages aren't converting, this and that. And so tuning into that and knowing like, okay, shorter programs are a bit preferred right now. I want a quick win. CTAs have to be really spot on. And so knowing that really helps to move the meter. And then guess what? It's going to change again in January.
Thank God.
Oh, yeah, I know. I was doing it. Yes, thank God is right.
See, as an Aries, I'm like, that makes so much sense. Yes, let's get this done now. Yes, obviously, yes.
I'm like, no, this needs to change immediately.
Yes.
So, also at some point, if I ask too much, that's people need to pay me for that. You can feel free to let me know because I'm just so curious about all of this. But what
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of cycle are we going to move into come January?
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So the nodes will shift and they will shift into Pisces. And there's also, I want to tag on something really quickly.
Yeah.
So the north node is what we're moving towards. The south node is what we're moving away from. So I think your folks will have seen this, and it's some evidence that I always like to share evidence of what's been happening. So people are like, oh, she's not making this stuff up. But we moved away from Libra energy, which is the polished, the long form sales pages. It's got to be beautiful. To we've all seen like sales pages as Google Docs, right? That was never something 2 years ago you saw. Like it was like, oh, you can't do that. But that is that like, and I don't think we'll go back. It'll take, another 9 years before the North Node's in Libra, when maybe that longer must be beautiful, has to be there. So there's always something we're moving towards and something we're moving away from. And then we're collectively learning. So I think it's just fascinating to watch. Um, and so when we move into Pisces, very different energy. Aries is fire energy, it's get it done energy. Pisces is much is water energy, it's emotional energy, it's dreamy energy. But it comes after Aries, it goes backwards with the nodes. For those of you that do know astrology, it's like, why is she going backwards? It should be the other way around. But we've had all this nervous energy, our nervous systems have been just overloaded. And now we come to Pisces and it's like, I just need to heal this stuff. Like I just need to be in it. So how does that affect our marketing? I think there's three big things I would say need to change from where we are today. One is that we really need to, that know, like, trust factor, right? We're going to flip it to trust needs to come first. That belief that I trust that, Nikki and Kate have something that's going to help me. And then I get to the page, what do they believe about themselves? What do they believe about the world? What do they believe about you? But how do you build trust? So as your clients are, you've got this beautiful circuit system, right? There's so many ways through that process that they can build in trust. That's testimonials, walking your own talk, really showing up, like not hiding things. So not that we do that in Aries, but it's such a quick transaction. Things are going to slow down. So building trust along the way so that when people are ready to lean in, they will, is going to be important. So
That
that's
makes a lot
one
of sense.
piece. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And then two, which I think you'll both appreciate, is, people's BS meter is going to be off the charts. So the old school bro marketing, false urgency, bye-bye. Like that is going to turn people off big time. Doesn't mean we don't give people deadlines or boundaries, but we don't do it in a way of like, oh, well, I said I was closing the cart, but I'm just going to add 3 more days. People are going to be like, I don't freaking trust her. Like and so you're going to lose that person, because intuitively people are going to know. They're going to be more leaning into their sense of knowing. And so nurturing that with like, what works for you, what you need. And I know that if you're so and so, I can give you those things. So adjusting the marketing a bit. And what's beautiful is like you all set up these beautiful systems, right? They can just go in the background. So you only need to do this once every 18 months. It's not like you got to do it. You can tweak things at certain times, other things. So someone said to me, like, well, what do I do with my welcome sequence? I'm like, you tweak it every 18 months, just a little bit, to meet it. And then the third thing is, which goes along a bit with both of those, is this idea that I think the sales cycle is going to be longer. So those people who already have been in your world, and we're already starting to see it. I was supporting a client with her launch, because because I do AstroStrategic launch support specifically as well, where we're road mapping all the dates and then what's going on collectively. And she was like, the newer people to her world were not buying. She had, a large group of new people come into her list, and it was fairly evident that and there's always going to be those fast people who like already, they just trust and go. So you'll still get that, but knowing that you need to nurture these people, that Pisces energy of like, I want to be nurtured, I want to be supported, I want to be invited to tune in. So know that. And then, so really focusing on, those people who are already solution aware, those are the people that we really want to hit, invite in quickly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Does the founder's chart or kind of the exec team's chart factor into all of these elements as well?
Yeah, what I find is fascinating, what I love to do is when we're building out like a marketing plan, is looking at both a personal chart of the founder and then a business chart. And so people ask me, how do I find my business chart? You can have a chart, because here's what I believe, and here's where I'm the little bit of the woo, but I just see the data over and over again of proof of this. Your business chose you. Like you're the perfect person to run this particular business. And so when I look at both charts, there's always this beautiful synergy. And sometimes we just need to let the business lead, because the human, the person has different needs than the business. But so we look at what season is the business in, what season are you in, what's going on. Like I give each of my clients a theme for the year, and it's like, well, this year is not about, this is about leaning into whatever you've already worked on, or this year is about expanding your visibility, because in your chart, it says these things, which is really powerful. And then utilizing that chart to create a flow for what you're doing when.
Mm. How do you decide what the business's birthday is? Like for personally, I started one of our brands, so really kind of the beginning in like May of 2012,
yeah.
but we incorporated the company in January of 2020. Maybe I should look that up. I think it's January 2020. What would be where?
So oftentimes I'll have like the best date is the germination of the idea, which most of us don't have, because we were sitting there and this came up, and then we didn't write that date and time down. Although I was able to, I had a client the other day, we were able to find hers. We're just fine tuning the time, because she was she knew the event around it, which we could find a window. So that's the best, because that's when the business called you in and you said yes and we're off to the races. But we can use a domain date and time. We can use like incorporation. I originally used my original domain, and then I moved away I tried to not use my name and not be me. When I went back and said, okay, it's just Sheri Moise, it can be me, but not me. Then I used the day and time I sent that email that said, here's what I'm doing now. And so sometimes it shifts because the business has a different, and it was cool to look at those two charts because it progressed for me, the business, what it was and what it became when I stepped into that different energy. So lots of options. And typically what I'll do is we'll grab a few dates and I'll look at charts and say, does this feel right? Does this look right? And then we nail it down.
That makes sense. Yeah, because all of our businesses change, and it would make sense that the elements of it, or the traits of it, change as well. That makes a lot of sense.
I'm curious. I know you mentioned, talking about data earlier, and I think you've mentioned a few things along the way, obviously, that point to specific data points like dates and time and whatnot. But can you dig into that a little bit more for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, the data that we can pull, so things like we were talking about, like navigating business decisions. So a lot of times we're, just throwing darts or trying to decide, or just, so we shift to data over drama. Like, you want to write a book or you want to put out this course and you need to build things. So the data to like, when is the right timing, the best timing? Because it's like having the sun at your back, right? We want that momentum energy. Because what I'll see happen is people will make goals and decisions, right, about what they want to do. And I think the average is, some study says it's like 3.74 months when then we're off to the next thing, right? Like we've let go of whatever it was. And I think oftentimes, because most of planning is done in the winter when we are more internal, then when we start to come out of that, it doesn't resonate or we're not there anymore. So finding the right cycles and seasons to make those focuses and decisions. So really optimizing your timing for your business activities. So when do you want to add new offers? When do you want to, like I said, write that book? And so I'll literally map out for my clients. We look at like 4 categories: revenue gen, um, visibility, systems and structures. And then my thing is, I want you to have a thriving business and a nourished and happy you. I want to keep you off the burnout bus. So we're building in rest periods. I had a client the other day. She's like, I know that I need to slow down. So I need you to tell me when to rest. So by using the astrology, and I said, well, great, then I don't have to twist your arm. But those, that flow, and then identifying growth opportunities. Like I said, sometimes I'll tell a client, like, your chart says, keep it simple this year, because this is what's happening. But other times it's like, you know what, this is a period of growth and expansion. And so let's focus on, how do you want to get more visible? Like all of those things and pieces. And here's the timing to do it.
Mhm. How do you typically, what is a typical, not package, but how do you typically partner with your clients? What does that usually look like?
So if we're doing I call it AstroStrategic, plan, business plan, typically it's done in kind of a VIP based style, except I like to break it up so that we're working in a couple of chunks. And then I do some pre-work, we work together, we go into those 4 areas or whatever areas that people, desire. But I find that typically will cover most things. And then I come back, build out a roadmap, and then we refine it. And then folks have access to me throughout the year, ideally. Like we're, coming back, because what happens is life happens and then we need some refinement. So either at that 4 or 6 month period, and then again at 9 months, so that we're making those adjustments and just making sure things are working. And then from a launch support, people who are doing like a traditional launch, if they're that's more of a done for you, where we meet, you tell me what we've picked the best timing for you and collectively, and then I come back with all the dates from pre-launch to start of course or program. And then I give the other beautiful gift of the astrology beyond like that North Node energy is we can get like super specific with like the actual emails. That's what I was doing this morning for a client. Like I'm telling her what to be sharing. Your message is your message, your offer is your offer. We're just meeting, like you said, Nikki, meeting people where they're at. And so the moon, if we get that specific on a particular day, is in a particular sign, and that's the public, that's the emotion. So I'll give people this, one of my clients, she's like, that's like, I feel like I have this secret sauce to, to elevate her launch results. And so addressing certain things in certain times is really valuable. So those are typically the 2 ways. I do have what I call kind of a cohort, where people who aren't ready for like the 1-to-1, I do small groups every quarter and we build out that plan, and then they get ongoing support as well. So that's the AstroBiz lab, as I like to call it.
Oh, that's cool. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm curious on a day-to-day basis, have you run your own chart? And so, I mean, obviously I'm sure you have, and then you check it each day, or do you have a go-to website that you will do? I guess it's the more general signs versus your individual chart. But I'm curious what your habits are as a professional. Personally, I check 3 or 4 different websites each morning and then promptly forget exactly what they said, which is not useful in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form.
So fortunately, like my teacher, my mentor for astrology for business, she's created these really powerful calendars. And so they go through all the different transits, they go through where the moon is, where the sun is, etc. And then you can personalize it. Typically, I'm looking for the week. Like I'm just being curious about like what's going on for the week. There's a couple of astrologers myself that I follow. I also write a forecast. I call it the Cosmos Weather Forecast for my clients to use in their content for that week. And so I'm tuning in once a week there. And then when I get stuck, like if I want to write a post or an email, that's when I'll go to my calendar and I'm like, okay, what's happening today? Or if I'm giving my VA, the content roadmap for the next week or two, I will look at what's going on astrologically and try to place things in more strategic spots. So I was talking to one of my clients yesterday. There's so much, again, data. Like I have a lot of things on my calendar that I could look at. I try to keep it really simple because otherwise it just becomes overwhelming. Like some of my clients, I never share the moon stuff because the moon moves every 2.5 days. But if we know where the sun is, which is every 30 days, and we can track that, then it's like, okay, we're going into Libra season here in a minute. What does that mean? What does that mean for how I'm positioning my offers? What does that mean for what I'm focused on in my business? Libra is about polishing things up. It's about partnerships, communication. So I know the themes, and then I can, honestly, like I'm not as good about writing out my own strategic plan as I am at doing other people's, but which is typically how we are. So, full transparency, I do not have my roadmap. But when I go to do an invitation cycle, I am going to the astrology to pick the date and the timing so that I feel most supported and get out of my own way. Because otherwise we just stand there and stare at the calendar. It's like, oh, well, that looks like a good date.
Yeah,
So
that makes a lot of sense. And I can only imagine that it must be a massive amount of information. So not only for you to strategically help your clients craft things and plot things out, but even just to be the sieve to keep out the information they don't need to think about, and all of that kind of thing is so valuable.
yeah, I'm always like this yesterday when I was my client had added an extra downsell offer on the back end. And I was like, okay, I could give her all these things. And I just tune in and I'm like, nope, just going to give her these 2 pieces and that's it. Because she's doing a thing quick and down and dirty. And so I'm going to meet her where she's at. So I really try to do that. Like, I don't want to overwhelm people with information because you'll just not do anything with it. And then that's not valuable. We want data that moves the meter. And so that's always my goal. What's the data that's going to move the meter? What are you tracking in your business? You're tracking your sales, you're tracking your conversions, you're tracking, so how can we elevate those things? What astrological data will help us move the meter revenue wise, or, all those things? Those is what I want to provide my clients with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is all, I mean, it's like I said, I'm astro curious, absolutely, and kind of always have been, but the idea of melding astrology with your business is new to me, but so interesting. Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you want to make sure that people know or understand? And certainly we'll give them your website and ways to get in touch with you, but if even just to help them wrap their minds around it.
So the thing that I really think is where I kind of get on my soapbox. I'll try not to get too high on my soapbox here, but
Get on
so
it.
Yeah,
all
do
right,
it,
let's
girl,
do
do
it.
it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So, all our ancestors go back, millennial, worked with seasons and cycles. They just did. They followed the sun, they followed the moon, they followed the planets. That's how they ran the seasons. You know, they they used winter to rest. Like they didn't work 24/7. Only in the last 400 years, industrial revolution, have we come to this place of like, oh, and even less than that, where, we leave the house and work 40 hours a week or more. And so this industrial model is so toxic and so unhealthy. And it's not how we're wired as humans and this is why people get into burnout and people, because it's not sustainable. Our adrenal system can't handle it. And I got the t-shirt. Like I know what it's like to have adrenal fatigue. I did all the things when I was in corporate, and then we had a business, my husband and I had tween kids, and I was working 7 days a week. And I was like, oh, I got this. I'm eating well, I'm working out. It's not sustainable, and we're going to crash and burn at some point. And so as an entrepreneur, you are the number one asset in your business. Period. End of story. Like it's you. You may have a great team, and that's fantastic. But as the CEO founder, you taking care of you is critical to the success of your business. So learning that there are these ebbs and flows, and that you can, this is why like New Year, New You it's a manufactured thing. I was in retail, I was in consumer products, and I watched this thing get birthed back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And it's manufactured date. This, astrologically, and our ancestors felt spring was the new year, right? There's different, if you look at people, there's a harvest calendar and things like that. So my point in all of this is that we're not meant to work at the same pace 24/7, 5 days a week, and honoring that and finding your own ebb and flow. Astrology is great for it because it will help guide you. But even each, major zodiac, if you follow the sun, like I said, we came out of Virgo, which is very earth grounded energy. It's like practical, tactical, get it done. And then we go into Libra, which is more air energy. It's a very different cycle. One is lower. When we hit fire signs, those are higher energy cycles. But if you just think about the seasons, what's your favorite season? Where do you feel most energized? Where do you feel the least energized? And can you give yourself permission to do less during those cycles and seasons when you feel less energized, or just be more strategic about it? That's why I call it AstroStrategic planning. We're being strategic. Like I want you to hit all your goals, and I want you to do it in a way that's sustainable. And so follow your ancestors, winter is like not the time. We need that time to go in, like to process everything we've been through and what we want next. This is why people tend to move slower in winter, and then we get into spring and it's like, oh, we feel rebirthed, right? But if we didn't allow ourselves that time and energy, we're not going to get the best out of the gifts that we have to give.
It's so wise, and it shouldn't be, but so revolutionary. The idea of like, and you feel it, right? You feel it that there are times when you just don't, quote unquote, function as optimally as you think you would, or you don't perform to the same level. And personally, when I get into one of those lower phases, one of those ebb phases, I worry that I'm never going to get back up again, that I'm down here forever. I'm all of that kind of thing. So I love the idea of not just accepting the ebbing and flowing, but also expecting it and welcoming it and allowing it so that you can actually move through it.
And lean into it, right? Let's make sure, like whenever we're mapping out launch times or bigger energetic times where we got to put more, I'm always adding in rest periods. Like, okay, well, when are you going to do for yourself? Like, because we have to recharge our batteries, and it's vital to the long-term success. We've all watched, people who had massive businesses just walk away from them. Why? Because they burnt themselves out and they didn't enjoy the business anymore. So, we ebb and flow in a daily basis, like our energy flows. Some people are morning people, some people are night people. So it's the same idea. I want you to extrapolate that over a week, over a month, over a season, and really, you know, I'm all about, I use a system I call the power of one, or the empowered to-do list, where it's like no more than 3 things. And what's the one thing that's going to move the meter today? And that's the thing I focus on. Like, my to-do list needs to fit on a Post-it note. And that, not that there's not other things, but that's just a mindset that I embrace after really killing myself for so many years. And just, when I went into entrepreneurship, I just said no to overdoing it. Now I've had to work on my own mindset of like, that, what does, like, so what does that really mean? Because I've can hold myself back because I don't want to be too busy. But if I'm intentional about my time and energy, I'm moving the meter and I create momentum. And then there's no reason to feel guilty about rest. And it needs to be a regular thing.
How joyous to not feel guilty about rest, but enjoy it actually and love it.
That's beautiful.
Yes, please.
That.
Yes,
yeah.
please. So,
Well, Sheri, I could keep you on here for hours more. I don't think that's very respectful of your time, but I would love it. And I'm sure that everybody listening or watching feels the same way. So that if when they how did they get into your world? Where do they find you? What can they sign up for?
So great place to start is my website, and it outlines, the things that I talked about, ways to work with me. But there's 2 ways you can get started. One, there's a blog that I do for every zodiac cycle, and I do break down like what the focus is for offers, for content, like, so you can get a quick snapshot, and it's written and it's an audio. And then at the bottom of that page, there's a way to grab what I call Sun Cycles for Success. And that will give you some ideas, just snippets to like tune into and get curious about. And then, so there's that. So just go to SheriMoise.com, find the blog. Also, I just launched a quiz, which I'm really excited about. It's called Uncover Your Cosmic Catalyst. And what that is it's your what I call your entrepreneurial edge. It's the thing that separates you from others and has people leaning in to work with you. So knowing what that is for yourself, and because it's a thing we tend to be like, oh, that's too much. I'm too much in this way. When really it's the thing that's going to attract people to you. So leaning into your edge is really fun and powerful. And so I walk you through, it's a quick, short 2-minute quiz that'll get you, some guidance there. And then once you're inside my world, I talk more about like the different ways you can use astrology in your business. So.
Ooh, so much fun. I can't wait to dig in.
I'm going to sign up right now.
I know, right? Like, clear my afternoon. We're doing this. Yeah. Awesome.
We're doing this thing.
We're doing it. Awesome. We'll put all those links in the show notes if someone's listening and wants to know. But Sheri, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge so generously. We really appreciate it.
You are so welcome. It is my pleasure. Like I said, I just, I'm on a mission to ensure that entrepreneurs are doing their work in the world, and that means taking care of themselves. So this is just my way of giving people permission to work differently and think about their business in a different way that I know from data creates more sustainability and better results in the long run.
So beautiful and so well said. And with that, we will catch you all in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Do you want to learn how to sell and scale your offer on autopilot every single day without the chaos of live launching or the low conversions of Evergreen? Who doesn't, right? Get our free on-demand video training at circuitsalessystem.com/free. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to make sure you never miss a video. We'll catch you next time.